The bell tolls 6 o'clock p.m. Hello. So let's make some magic happen. This meeting of your Pontiac City Council is hereby called to order, and we give the floor to Councilman William Parker, Jr. to introduce this evening's invocation.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is a pleasure to introduce Pastor Chris Johnson of the All Saints Episcopal Church, and he will give us our invocation.
Thank you. Please join me as we pray. Holy God, in your word you have given us a vision of that holy city to which the nations of the world bring their glory. Behold and visit, we pray, Pontiac and all the cities of the earth. Renew the ties of mutual regard which form our civic life. Send us honest and able leaders. Enable us to eliminate poverty, prejudice, and oppression, that peace may prevail with righteousness and justice with order, and that men and women from different cultures and with differing talents may find with one another the fulfillment of their humanity. Bestow upon those who hold office in this city the spirit of wisdom, charity, and justice, that with steadfast purpose they may faithfully serve in their offices to promote the well-being of all people. Healing God, bless all communities, businesses, schools, colleges, and universities and other educational institutions that have suffered violence and trauma this year and in recent years. And of course, we remember the people in Allen, Texas, and those in Brownsville, Texas, that in witness to their healing, they may continue to be lively centers for community gathering, commerce, sound learning, new discovery, and the pursuit of wisdom. And grant that those who live and work in these places may find you, O God, to be the source of all truth. We pray especially for those who seek a safe, warm place to call home, a place where personal dignity and self-respect may prevail, a place where our community leaders can discern sound business opportunity without sacrificing human compassion and responsibility. All this we ask through the grace and mercy of you, O God. Amen.
Amen. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance, followed by a moment of silence.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And please remain standing as we read the names that in recent weeks our community has lost. Josephine Alivardo, Armani Baker, the 22-year-old whose life was taken on Hammond Street. Jacqueline Blackwell, Dolores Bowie, Anthony Bradford, Deborah Burks, daughter of former Pontiac City Councilwoman Dr. Doris Taylor Burks, Katie Tenuta Clark, Edward Clinkscales, Justin Franklin, Karen Goit, Vernon Gordon Jr., Mary Graham, James Granberry, Anita Hamelin, Terry Hargrave, David Henyon, Rhonda Hills, Jess Holland Jr., Cecilia Huff, Shirley Hunt, Joella Jackson, Terry Jones, a retiree of the city's water department who will be acknowledging in this evening's meeting with a resolution, Raymond Cassat, Martina Lewis, Randy Maddox, who will also be acknowledging with a resolution this evening, Neray Mahone, George Marquez Jr., Christopher Matthews, Jeffrey McMillan, Diana Miller, Mark Miller, Mary Morrow, Bill Neff, Eva Niepling, James Offrink, father of Pastor Laura Kelsey of First Presbyterian Church, Mother Helen Parker, Irene Powell, Albert Rayborn, James Reed Jr., Maurice Richard, Randall Richardson, Willie Ringstaff Sr., Terry Robertson, Patricia Rohofsky, Angel Rosario, Bruce Rudderbush, Pamela C., Burton Simmons Sr., Joe Simmons, Bill Smith, Alicia Stevens, Royce Stewart, Terry Underwood, Darwin Vinson, who we've mentioned before, and who Councilman Rutherford delivered a tribute to at his memorial service this past weekend. Frederick Zittel Jr., 93 years young, who was the athletic director and coach at Pontiac Central for decades. His wife of 63 years, also 93, passed days after he did, or just days apart from him, Sally Zittel. And in addition to those, we remember who we've lost. I do also want to elevate the name. I haven't received an update to know if he is still missing or if he is returned home, but there was a 12-year-old from Carr Street, DeMar Johnson, who in recent days was missing, and we want to lift and raise his name and surround his family in prayer as well and hope for his safe return. Please join us as a community as we have a moment of silence. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Carrington. Goodman.
Here.
James. Here. McGinnis.
Present.
Nicholson. Parker.
Here.
Rutherford.
Present.
Mr. President, you have a quorum.
Quorum being established, is there a motion to excuse Councilman Carrington and Nicholson for personal reasons?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. Both are undertaking work obligations at this moment. Hearing no discussion on that motion before us, roll call and adoption of the motion to excuse Council members Carrington and Nicholson from this evening's meeting for personal reasons. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman.
Yes.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries, and they are hereby excused. Is there a motion to approve this evening's agenda?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford and seconded by Councilman Goodman that we approve this evening's agenda, so that motion is now before us. I've heard from staff and council members of 3 particular items that we'll want to tweak, and we can do that in one amendment. The amendment would be the resolution approving the mayor's appointment to the Planning Commission vacancy, number 18. The mayor has provided that name, and so that is Sue Sinclair. So we'll want the agenda to reflect resolution approving mayor's appointment of Sue Sinclair to Planning Commission vacancy. We also want to, on number 15, change that figure of 100,000 to read the correct sum of 200,000 for that, authorizing the clerk to publish the proposed budget amendment. And then finally, adding a resolution to proceed in closed session to consider and discuss confidential legal opinions in connection with trial or settlement strategies and the purchase of real property. And that would be the new number 21 that would come after public comment. Is there such a motion to amend?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we entertain those amendments to the agenda. Any discussion? Those are the 3 elements. Adding the name to specify the mayor's appointment to the Planning Commission, correcting the figure for that budget amendment posting, and then adding that resolution for the closed session to come after public comment.
Point of information, did they give us a resume for the person that they're having us vote for?
We can, when we get that on the agenda, do you feel comfortable keeping it on the agenda, but asking for that once we
I
get
would
to
like
that?
to have it before we do it. I'd like to know about this person.
Meaning you don't want it on the agenda if we don't have a,
That is correct.
okay. Mayor Grimel, is there a resume? All right, there's a thumbs up, so it will be provided.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you for elevating that. This is the time to prune those matters in the garden of local government. Is there any other discussion on the motion before us, which is approving these amendments to the agenda? Hearing no further discussion, roll call Clerk Doyle on the amendments to the agenda.
James.
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The amendments are approved and now reflected in the main motion before us, adoption of this evening's agenda as amended. Any other discussion? Any other amendments? Hearing none further, speakers list exhausted. Roll call on adoption of the agenda as amended. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The agenda is adopted. We will proceed accordingly. Is there a motion to approve this evening's consent agenda?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Parker. In this evening's consent agenda are the Law and the Court Subcommittee meeting minutes of April, the Facilities and Property Subcommittee meeting minutes of April, the Economic Development, Housing and Planning Subcommittee meeting minutes of May 1st, last week's May 2nd City Council regular meeting minutes, and then we have resolution recognizing May as Asian American and Pacific Islander Heritage Month, recognizing May as Mental Health Awareness Month, and recognizing May as Military Appreciation Month. So those are the items in the consent agenda. With that, roll call on approval of the consent agenda. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The consent agenda is hereby approved. We are at special presentations. We have 3 of them this evening, and so we don't anticipate that they'll be lengthy, but I want to, more than anything else, make sure that you had information on it. The first is that General Motors has made an announcement, or at least news has broken, that General Motors is going to construct a new manufacturing plant for parts, an investment of $200 million at the former Palace of Auburn Hills site. And it is not taking up all of the Palace of Auburn Hills site, but I think about 85 of 110 acres. So there is still additional development that may happen there. But the most noteworthy element of that announcement is that there are 1,000 jobs that are anticipated on that site. And obviously, that's very close proximity for the city of Pontiac. So a good opportunity for General Motors employment for Pontiac residents. It's also worth noting that that is located in our Pontiac School District footprint. And it's 4 times the value, the taxable value this plant would be over when the palace was there before it was demolished. And so that's a boost to us Pontiac School District taxpayers where that will be a higher tax collection. No tax breaks or anything like that have been announced by the city of Auburn Hills, so we anticipate that that would lead to revenue generation, obviously to benefit Auburn Hills, but more relevant for us to benefit Pontiac's school district. We are one of the few school districts in the state that are out of formula, meaning the commercial tax base leads to direct increase in funding for our pupils. So that's a big deal. And just want to make sure that the community was aware of that development, and we'll continue to monitor it as well. So that parts plant is servicing the Lake Orion assembly plant, and they've announced billions of dollars in new investment at the Orion site, which is promising in the sense that in this ever-evolving and sometimes unstable manufacturing climate in the automotive industry as well, that we don't want the Orion plant going anywhere because there are many, many Pontiac residents that are employed there with stable, quality, good paying, and good insurance jobs. And so by them announcing the reinvestment into Lake Orion and this new parts plant, it's a good sign for those long-term retention of those plants, but then also the remaining locations in Pontiac as well. We've talked about it before, but relatedly, General Motors is the entity who is leasing that massive new facility on Opdyke Road in Pontiac, the Oakland Logistics Park in the former site of one of the truck plants. So that's General Motors over there, and that's in Pontiac as well. Any discussion further on that item? Mainly, we just want to make sure the community was aware of that development and the impact that could have for Pontiac in a positive way. Hearing no further discussion, we're on to our second special presentation. Also, very briefly, we wanted to make sure that the community was aware about the upcoming groundbreaking for the Pontiac Skate Park project. And if Deputy Mayor Stevens would like to elaborate any further, since the mayor's not in the chambers at the moment, want to give you the floor.
All right. Thank you, Council President. So as many of you know, we have been working on bringing a skate park or an updated skate park to Oakland Park for quite some time now. And we are finally ready to have that official groundbreaking. It will take place this Saturday from 3:30 to 5 p.m. in Oakland Park. So we invite everyone to come out, have fun, enjoy the rest of the park, but also just be part of the ceremony to watch us break ground as we get ready for the next phase of life.
And so again, all are welcome to come to that groundbreaking this Friday. Councilwoman Rutherford.
I just want to thank again Mary Jane Rennie for her hard work and her boots on the ground from day one. Before there was anything happening, it was Mary Jane that was pushing this agenda. So I think credit should be given to her also.
Fantastic, yes. Further discussion on the special presentation? All right. With that, we're at our third special presentation. We have the legendary Ronnie McNear and his beautiful bride in the chambers this evening, and so we want to give the floor to him if he'd like to take the podium for his presentation.
Yay! Ronnie rocks!
And then the microphone is active if you hit the button at the base to the right. Yep, it's live.
Hello, I'm there. Anyway, I'd like to thank the council for letting us come here tonight. And my main reason for coming here is to thank y'all personally, I mean, from the bottom of my heart, for passing our liquor license. Because y'all know, without that, I might as well forget the whole idea. And for years, I've had this in my mind to try to bring something to Pontiac. As you know, and I don't mean to be out of order or talk racially, but you know, the African-American community is just, we don't have nothing. We don't have no stores. We don't have no gas stations no more, nothing. So I'm really proud to bring something to the city that will really, I mean, it's for everybody, but my heart is with my people because I grew up on the east side of Pontiac. And I know that they are going to be so ready to come to this new place. We really got it together. And once again, I just want to thank y'all because without y'all, I couldn't have did it, you know, and hopefully the state does the same thing that y'all did for me. And there's one other thing. They gave me my own street name in my honor a few years ago, and I'm so proud of that too. And as I ride through my neighborhood, I run into some people sometimes, and they say, hey, man, they gave you a street. Can't you go down there and tell the people at the city that the east side is too raggedy? And I said, man, I'm not into politics, you know, and I hate politics. I've seen so many friends fall out of friendship over a difference of opinion. That's ridiculous. But, you know, in America, you had a right to be stupid sometimes. So, but I told them, I said, you know what? I knew that I was coming down here, and I thought about that. And I said, you know what? Let me do that for them. So I'm just telling you that some of it wasn't but 3 or 4 people, but everybody count. And they told me, please tell the city that don't forget about the east side when they come to doing things, fixing up stuff. And this on TV, ain't it? Is this on TV? Okay, well, at least there's a record of me. I did what they asked me to do. And one other thing, and one of the citizens in Pontiac who has been a trailblazer, Mr. Kenny Big Fun Core, is really sick, real bad. So y'all pray for him, and thank y'all for having me. Okay.
Thank you.
Well, on behalf of the entire city of Pontiac, we thank you for investing in and building something magical in the city and in downtown Pontiac for Pontiac residents. So we celebrate that. With that, Councilwoman Rutherford.
I'm just so excited to be actually at a place. Mr. McNair has wanted this as long as I can remember as a kid, and to actually see it come into fruition, to be a part of the solution is awesome. Plus, we finally gonna get to jam in our own hometown, so that means a little bit more. We're gonna get down. So I'm very excited.
Thank you very much.
You're so welcome.
Mayor Grimal.
Thank you.
Well, we are thrilled about you opening up this establishment in our downtown. It's, I know, going to be a great place. I remember when we met last year, you came in to visit and talk about your plans, and to see it come to fruition is just really exciting, not just for those of us at City Hall, not just even for you, although I'm sure it's really exciting for you, but it's exciting for the entire community. And we want to celebrate you and everything that you've accomplished. But this is an opportunity for you to share that with the whole community by having a true destination in the heart of our downtown that's going to be just a great, lively, fun place for people to go, and we're excited about it. And I took a look at it, as you know, last week, and it's coming along great in terms of the renovations and improvements, and we're really, really excited about the opportunities ahead and everything you've done and will continue to do for the community. So thank you both so much.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you.
God bless everyone.
Thank y'all.
Councilman Parker.
I just want to say, Mr. McNair,
sorry.
thank you for investing in our city, and we pray that the city will also invest in you.
Man, thank you, man. I appreciate that. You know, I've been blessed to be at Fort Top for 22 years now, and
Amen.
I travel around the world, and I see so much stuff, and I say, you know what? I see a little bit here, a little bit there, and I say, I'm gonna bring a little bit of that, and then bring it to one place. So when we open up, I just hope everybody be proud of us. That's all.
Thank you, sir. With that, that concludes our special presentations. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you. Thank you.
We are at subcommittee reports. The first is Communications, Engagement, and Operations. That subcommittee chair, Councilman Goodman.
Good evening, everyone. So the last subcommittee meeting for Communications, Engagement, Operations was on the 28th of April. We ended up discussing some strategies in terms of community outreach when it comes to like making sure that residents have access and knowledge of resources, as well as communicating concerns and working on that process. A couple of like the small logistical things around pride and beautification and how we can improve that going into this coming year, as well as one of our new hires in the communications department. We went over a couple of communication updates in terms of what's being worked on in terms of the website, which is almost done, branding and marketing for the city, as well as some cable department updates, some things in regards to the budget that you'll be seeing soon in terms of some planning, not only for cable, but for IT and communications. I can happily say that as of this meeting, our transition to Microsoft 365 is finally complete after over a year. So it has been nice no longer being on the Exchange system as a person who is a nerd about IT and technology. And then also just generally preparing for what is the state of the city. But other than that, those are all the updates that I have from the Communications and Engagement Operations Subcommittee.
Thank you. Reporting on behalf of the Economic Development, Housing, and Planning Subcommittee, that most recent meeting was May 1st. We reviewed something that's come before City Council last week and is on our agenda tonight regarding the return of paid parking into downtown Pontiac. So they're rehabbing the kiosks and adding a mobile parking app option for payment. They will work to be considerate and notify and give folks a heads up that that is returning, so that way it's not just a light switch flipping and tickets start being issued. They want to ease it, folks into it and about that return to paid parking. It's not about generating revenue. It's about making sure that patrons are circulating, so that way residents of downtown or people that are working downtown don't take up that street parking, and then for the people that are shopping, dining, there's no easy parking, which really hurts our downtown business vitality. So that's the main goal there. We reviewed, as you heard from Sunset Island and the McNears, in terms of waiting for their verdict from the State of Michigan Liquor Control Commission. The city is pursuing a citywide housing study, and City Council followed up in terms of the status of the home repair program. Applications have still not been released for that. We want to make sure that the community knows as soon as possible about when that is date certain. We reviewed what will be coming up through the Planning Commission and then coming to City Council. So at the May 2nd Planning Commission meeting, the May 3rd Planning Commission meeting, what was discussed were housing and lodging facilities, as well as chickens and pets. And so the first reading for that is coming next week. It's this City Council. There'll be 2 readings. So over the next 2 meetings is when we expect those ordinance change proposals to come up. And then following that will be stormwater updates in terms of which development site plans will need to incorporate stormwater updates. And so we'll keep monitoring that before they come, and then eventually they'll be coming to city council consideration as well. We heard from the economic development, the planning staff, the building official in his absence, from the community development director, as well as from code enforcement. What was discussed, and you might have already have noticed, that there is a demolition underway right now at the corner of University, the Woodward Loop, and Union. Those two derelict homes, one of them suffered from a fire in recent years. Those are currently being demolished right now, and that's being done at private expense. It's the private property owner is paying for that, so not taxpayer dollars paying for that demolition. And we salute the code enforcement and building official leadership that they reached out, and we're very engaged with that property owner to make that important update happen for our neighborhoods. So for the sake of time, we'll leave it there, but the Economic Development, Housing, and Planning Subcommittee meets the first Monday of every month, 9 a.m. in the council conference room. Now we turn to Facilities and Property Subcommittee, chaired by Councilwoman Rutherford.
Good evening. In our committee, we talked about Purdue updates and see what's going to happen about the demolition of Purdue. We also talked about the DPW finding permanent placement and having additional placement temporarily. We talked about adding additional staff for our building upkeep for Larry and Vic. We received updates from new code enforcement officer, who is going to be Mr. Watkins. We also had updates on repairs at the Bowen Center, as well as Ruth Peterson, Jack McIntyre, Al Cooley, Mayor Grimal, President Mike McGinnis was present, and we also talked about the conditions of the Oak Hill Cemetery and the updates for that, and that is my report.
All right. Finance and Personnel Subcommittee, Councilman Nicholson is traveling. He may be able to join us depending on how long this evening's meeting. He's coming back from the airport. At their most recent meeting, part of what they reviewed was the completed fiscal year's audit and recommendations from the accounting firm in terms of enhanced best practices. And that's the Finance and Personnel. Law in the Courts, Councilman Parker, Subcommittee Chair.
Thank you, Brother President. We met on April 24th at 4 p.m. in the council conference room. We continue to address the infrastructure issues as they apply to the 50th District Court. We talked about the quotes that were submitted during the previous administration regarding the HVAC system, but as they keep investigating and evaluating it, found out that the 4 rooftop units need a further evaluation, which is certainly going to affect their budgeted amounts, which was probably needed to be increased in this budget year. We talked about the staffing. They have hired 5 new clerks, and they've interviewed some court officers as well as some judges. They've talked about both interests being worked on, and they may be able to use some of the contracting as they talk about the parking. But overall parking schedule is going to come to, after they finish doing it, it's going to come to somewhere between $250,000 and $275,000 to repair. We talked about how long does it take for development of a clerks, as since our city, certainly the clerks that are hired by the 5th District still make a little bit less than the surrounding area. So we discussed how long it takes to develop a clerk before they leave and go to a higher paying job. So that was discussed, and how the previous data suggested that 8 to 10 employees have been affected by that issue. 8 to 10 have already left for that basic issue. We talked also about how the retirement and buyout may affect some of the hiring of employees that are there currently. We talked about getting bids for the file room and how the clean slate legislation is affecting the overall organization of that room. They're still requiring some either temporary employees or existing clerical staff to organize the file room, and as you know, with clean slate, they have to go back through and dig through all the records to be able to print them so people can get clean slates. So that's starting to be a somewhat of an issue. We also discussed replacing the security system and preparing the RFP for that process. Currently, they're using the court officers. Previously, they had a sheriff, and there was an issue with the chain of command from a long time ago. So the sheriff basically drops them off, and then they pick up with the court officers who take it from there. Certainly looking at the cost of using the sheriff's deputies again, which is being looked at as we are preparing the new budget. Talked about the Michigan Indian Defense Fund and system. approvals for the ability to work at 2 courts. We talked about Richard Taylor being hired as a magistrate for MDIC. Then we began to discuss code enforcement. I want to thank Mr. McIntyre for showing up. He has some very good information, and I can truly share with you that for a period of time, it was short of about 2 people, but now they should be fully staffed. In March, April, they had about 1,500 inspections for, I can't read my writing, what this is, but they had 1,500 inspections. They had 1,100 rentals. The grass contract for the city is being extended. The litigation there's litigation going on with issues with dogs, and multiple counties are involved. We then had a report from the Oakland County Prosecutor's Office with we had a presentation last week from the prosecutor's office. We recognize that they will be doing an expungement fair on June 3rd, which will also include clean slate, the expungement fair, and also a warrant clinic. We also discussed the anti-violence committee report and all that means, and I believe we will also have someone at the June 3rd expungement fair to deal with the anti-violence report. We also talked about employment for racially impacted and incarcerated individuals and the Center for Employment Opportunity and how much money is available for that, and that's a number that you can contact. We talked about the employment fair for the Lighthouse. We talked about we moved on to discussion of some of the other issues, homelessness issues that we talked about, for we had, I believe, Julie Walker, who was there to talk about it, and we also had Kimber Bishop Yankee, who came and continued to help us to drill down into trying to decide how do we best assist with the homeless issue in Pontiac, and so that's still being discussed, and that is my report, sir. And we wanted to make sure that for future consideration, we are talking about the Future Safe Surrender Program, and that was the end of our conversation. The next meeting will be May 22nd at 4 p.m. in the City Council Conference Room, and it is a public meeting, so all are invited. That is my report, sir.
All right. Parks, Recreation, and Public Works, that subcommittee chair, Councilwoman James.
Parks, Recreation, and Public Works met on April 24th, and our top announcement is that we have completed the sale for the new community center. McCarroll School property has now been purchased. That purchase has been finalized. It was reported that the final cost of the sale was reduced by $205,000. The original price that the owner wanted was $560,000, but we actually purchased the property for $355,000, a reduction of $205,000, and that was due to the environmental issues, the underground issues that are applicable to that property. Moving on, the grants report, a Sparks grant has been written by our grant department for Galloway Lake Park. As you know, Galloway Lake Park is in the process of having a design plan, and the design plan has actually been completed, and it will be presented to City Council, I believe, on the 24th is the date that's scheduled. So that we'll get a chance to look at that design plan. But in the meantime, the Sparks grant, which is a state of Michigan grant, has already been submitted for that park to get some money to start the work that's going to be done. I think the total cost for the plan to renovate and to renew Galloway Lake Park is into the millions, and the Sparks grant will start that process of being able to get that park completely renovated. Hawthorne Park, the maintenance agreement, as you know, Hawthorne is going to be managed by Oakland County. Oakland County, rather, will take over the day-to-day management of it. The park will remain a Pontiac City Park. That maintenance agreement is almost complete. We were talked about the estimated date that transition will take place is probably around September the 1st, which is the start of their new budget year. But there will be a transition period, and we could see Oakland County taking over some of the functions in the park earlier in the summer, like, for instance, they may be able to take over cutting the grass as early as, I would say, June. So that is already in the works, and our opera, the grants manager also said that in terms of the Opera Park revitalization, all 11 of the parks will be included in the RFP to have the work done in those parks. Of course, there will be community engagement sessions, to determine what we want to do in those parks. But once those sessions are done, there will be one RFP written for all those parks, and that will include Crystal Lake. Crystal Lake has received a $500,000 grant from Oakland County that was part of their opera monies. And that money will be used to reopen, to do some work at Crystal Lake and to be able to reopen that park. So Crystal Lake will be included in the opera parks for the city of Pontiac. So it'd be a total of 11 parks that we will be going for an RFP for. We plan to use one general contractor for all 11 parks. For the senior center, I won't talk about that, but the city of Pontiac has received $7.5 million for the Opdyke Connector project. That project will add a road that will come out to Opdyke that will be able to handle the traffic for the new concrete plant that is in there behind the mortgage building. In addition to that, there's going to be some work done on the Clinton River Trail with those funds. So that work should get started fairly soon. The park manager's update is that he is currently interviewing employees to hire for park crew members. We are planning to hire a total of 4 individuals to work in our parks. To date, no one has been hired, but that work is going on to interview and to get those folks hired. Community cleanup, we did a great job with community cleanup. It was considered a huge success, and I really want to thank all of my colleagues on the city council for doing an outstanding job, just getting involved and in the cleanup and making sure that all of the special things that their districts needed were requested and that those things happened. So it was really a tremendous job, cooperation between the city, the council, and the community. So I want to thank everybody that participated. The Hawthorne Park update, Hawthorne, well, I've already said that transition period is already in process. The Public Works update from Al Cooley. He introduced the new city engineer, Shannon Filaricki. Shannon works for DLZ, but she will have office hours at the city on Monday and Wednesday. So we had a chance to meet her. The city now does have a city engineer that will be on site for at least half of the week. RFPs have gone out for the cemetery services, for our street sign, for our speed humps, and for janitorial services. The sidewalk, the street paving and sidewalk, the sidewalk trip hazard cutting has been completed. All the monies that we budgeted for that have been spent. And the question was, do we want to? They did such a good job in allowing the sidewalk replacement project to go further because the sidewalk cutting did a lot of the work that the replacements did not then have to do. So the money was able to go a lot further. So we're looking at possibly trying to see if we can come up with additional funds to do more of those trip hazards in cutting the sidewalks. But right now, the program is finished. The monies that were allocated have already been spent. Pavement repairs are ongoing with Baldwin, Joslyn, Telegraph Extension, Elizabeth Lake, and Beverly. Signal modernization on Auburn Road have started. They have put in the bases for the poles, and those will be put in the next couple of weeks. DPW, we voted last week on DPW. There was a discussion at our meeting that they were looking for a temporary site because they have to move out of their current site, but that site has been determined. Bostic has offered them the use of another one of their leased buildings, and so they are in the process of moving into their new site. And that's it. Our next meeting will be June the 22nd at 12 noon in the Legislative Conference Room, and the public is invited. Thank you.
Thank you. And then finally, Public Safety, Health, and Wellness. That subcommittee is chaired by Pro Tem William Carrington, who's still at work. At their most recent subcommittee meeting, they focused on the ceasefire program and the Anti-Violence Commission, where they also received regular updates from the Sheriff's Department, Waterford Regional Fire Department, and Star EMS. All right. That concludes our subcommittee reports. We are now at recognition of elected officials. Are there any current elected officials that wish to have the floor? Hearing none, we are at agenda address. Councilman Goodman, are there any requests this evening?
First request is from Dr. Deidre Waterman.
You'll want to hit, I'm sorry to do this, but you'll have to, yep.
Magic button.
It's
then.
live,
All
yes.
right. Hello, I'm here to address agenda item number 13, which is the hiring of additional I think it's it's number 13? Okay, right. I had another version of that. Hiring of additional consultants to help with our finance department. And I understand that this is one of the corrections that our auditors have required to move ahead with the rest of the financial planning and budgeting for the city.
I'll
and
stop
carrying
the
on.
clock. Do you mean Carlisle Wortman? They do planning. And that's 19. 13 is about a city retiree who died.
13 is the one I said, and that's the one having to do with the city accountants.
It's a city retiree
City
who passed
accountants,
away.
right, yeah, okay. So I think that's what this one is about, number 13, that's the way I read it. But anyway, so as many of you have seen, some of us have come forward to ask about the audit, which I see was recently just posted. Then this is the audit for the year ending June 30th, 2022. This, some of us realized, had been very late, and we were given various excuses by the mayor why it was late. Some of them just didn't make a lot of sense. But now that we have the audit out, we do see that there is a very strong rebuke from the auditing company that tells us why they felt the audit was late. And I'm going to read this for you. It says that the audit procedures that they were carrying on for the city were delayed due to appropriate supporting information not being available to us in a timely fashion. So instead of some of the excuses we were told why it was not ready and shown to the people, we see that the accountants who did the audit told us why it was happening. Now, as we go through, and I won't have enough time to do that here, but later on, we will talk about the fact why maybe this was hidden. Didn't want to show it because there's a management letter which also strongly rebukes the processes in the city. So let me end here, and I just wanted to bring that and show that some people were ridiculed for saying the audit was late, why we were not giving you wrong information.
Okay, again, this is agenda address, reflect the opportunity for the community to speak on items on the agenda. For the sake of time, I wasn't going to go back and forth on it, but that ain't on the agenda. And I just want to state for the record, that board letter also speaks about the forensic audit and gross negligence when it comes to the handling of contracts by the previous mayor. So that's a selective reflection of that board management letter, which is very public, very accessible, and the audit was emailed to the whole city. All right, so agenda address, shall we?
Next person on agenda address is Chuck Johnson, who I don't see here.
He's not here.
So then the last one, I believe, is Gloria Miller.
Actually, I was going to do this, President McGinnis, but I think I should be allowed to do it because Councilwoman James just brought it up in her discussion with DPW. And some of the issues I wanted to discuss was the speed hump. I noticed, Councilwoman James, that you said the RFP just went out for the speed humps. We're a little late in the game. It's May. Maybe in your closing comments, I may be here, I may be home. Maybe you can address when do you anticipate maybe getting those RFP out, because I have a lot of neighbors that stated, especially in District 5, that wanted those speed humps. That was one of my big things I pushed when I was in office. And so you're just not doing an RFP. That's kind of late. Seems like the mayor or the council would have put that out a little early, because kids are running in the street and it's getting ready to get hot. And a lot of these areas where these speed humps are going to go is going to save someone's kid's life, or perhaps even my grandkids when they come over. The second item I want to mention, you mentioned about the permits. One of you guys, I don't know if it's you, McGinnis, that does DPW. You guys need to look into how these, and if you want to find out who they are, I can give you a number of them, because I've been riding around. A lot of my residents have been calling me. There's a lot of businesses, particularly in 5. I'm going to deal with 5 right now. There's businesses being ran out of residential neighborhoods. So my question to them, they called me, they want to know how, where, and how did they accomplish it? How did the city give them permission to have a business in a residential neighborhood? Because they got the state license. But as you well know, I was on council, you got to get recommendation from the city to even say, hey, how do I get a license to work on trucks and cars in a residential neighborhood? So that's some of the things that you guys, I notice you don't put much on the agenda. Come into the neighborhood and work with some of the residents, some of the things that's going on in the neighborhood. You're on the shores and all of that's great. But let's come into the neighborhood, because there's a lot of problems. I'll address them later.
Does that conclude agenda address?
Yes, it does.
Okay. All right. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution recognizing and supporting the
So moved.
Autism Awareness Walk?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, second by Councilman Parker to adopt, Councilman Goodman, to adopt the resolution recognizing and supporting the Autism Awareness Walk here in Pontiac, Michigan. So we had Ms. Easley speak on that in recent weeks, and that's happening at Wisner Memorial Stadium in Pontiac, Michigan. And I don't want to misquote the date. The resolution has
May
it
the
in there.
20th.
May 20th?
Yes,
And if you want to read it further in the terms of the time.
yes. May the 20th from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m., sir.
Okay. Any further discussion on that resolution? Councilman Goodman.
I just wanted to say thank you to Ms. Easley for doing this again. She has done it now multiple years, and having interacted with her in terms of her work specifically with people on the autism spectrum is just an amazing thing. So I'm happy to be essentially hosting in district, but of course she's doing it of her own volition. So everyone who is helping her do that work as well, I truly do thank you.
All right. Any further discussion? Hearing nothing further, roll call on adoption of the resolution recognizing and supporting the Autism Awareness Walk.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution recognizing the heroism of Randy Maddox?
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. Randy Maddox, a 33-year-old resident of the city of Pontiac, tragically lost her life while being a good Samaritan out of state in Ohio on the highway. She herself was struck and killed while trying to help those teenagers that had been in a rollover accident. We send our condolences to her family, including her children, and her services are upcoming, and this resolution on behalf of the city recognizes the heroism and bravery in her final moments in her pursuit of trying to be a good Samaritan for her fellow human. Any further discussion on the motion before us? Hearing nothing further, roll call. Clerk Doyle.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution honoring the life of Pontiac retiree Terry Jones?
So moved. Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, second by Councilman Parker. So again, this is item number 13 on the agenda, resolution honoring the life of Pontiac retiree Terry Jones. He worked for 30 years for the city of Pontiac for the water department. He retired in the mid-2000s, around 2005. And he was a native of Pontiac, was a graduate of Pontiac Central High School. He grew up on Cochran Place off of Elizabeth Lake Road. His dad actually spent an entire career working at the state hospital at Clinton Valley doing music therapy for the patients. Terry was able to enjoy retirement for a good 18 years, and his widow, when I attended the services, wanted to make sure that on her behalf and the family's behalf, express their gratitude for the good life that Terry was able to have, the good job where he started just doing meters, worked all the way up to being a backflow inspector over at the facility on Opdyke Road when it was still part of the city operations, and she just wanted to express her gratitude that he was able to retire fully, be able to enjoy his pension, be able to have quality health care, and she wished the same for all the surviving retirees as well. So I just want to share that little context. We have the resolution that will be shared with the family. But for any of our retirees or current employees who lose their life, we want to acknowledge their service to the public. Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the resolution. Clerk Doyle.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to execute a contract with Passport
So
Inc.?
moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Parker. The resolution executes a contract with Passport Inc. for a mobile parking application and parking violation enforcement. Mayor Grimo, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. So last week, we passed a resolution, or council passed a resolution authorizing the contracting with a company to get the parking kiosks downtown back up and operational. This week, we're asking City Council to approve a contract with a parking app company so that people through their phones can pay for the parking meters and the parking fees on our downtown streets. So our entire approach here is to both allow people to pay at parking kiosks if they're not particularly comfortable with technology, or alternatively, as is increasingly common, for people to pay their meter rates for on-street parking using an online app. And with that, I'll turn it over to our Economic Development Manager, Deborah Younger, who's been working diligently on this so that she can explain why this particular company was selected.
Thank you, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Council. We've been working long and hard to try to find operators that can work with our system. The kiosks, as I explained last week, are relatively old, and there's only a few vendors that actually could, in fact, work with the kiosks. Similarly, because of the age of the kiosks, there were only a few vendors that could actually talk to the kiosks. So the software app for mobile parking has to be able to work with the kiosks. Passport was one of the few companies that, in fact, had software that would work with the kiosks. But more importantly, one of the things they had that made them stand out was the direct link with Oakland County court system. So once a traffic violation occurs, if in fact it's not dealt with by the person that is fined, it can go directly to the courts, most of Oakland County courts, and most of the other apps did not have that feature. So for those two reasons, one's because Passport could talk to our kiosks, and because of the direct linkage to Oakland County courts, if in fact we needed to pursue that, Passport Inc. was in fact selected.
All right. Any discussion on the motion before us?
I do. Point of
Councilwoman
information. Are you guys gonna do some displays or actually use like any way to show people how to put the app on their phone? Because we have people who are not computer savvy.
Sure.
And also, if we could do it where we do a presentation, we put it up for them to see it as well, because there's a lot of seniors who watch this at home, and maybe we can have you guys do it even at the senior centers too, because that's a huge barrier in our community.
Certainly. As a matter of fact, I met with the communications staff, and we in fact are going to do a video that will show how to use both the kiosks, because we haven't had the kiosks in a while. Some people may not know how to use it with their credit card, that type of thing. Then we will also have one that shows how to install and use a mobile app. So we've had the conversation, and we'll be working on developing those videos.
And my follow-up question is to the administration. There is a sign, I don't know if it's private property or not, that's if you know where the big lot 9 is, and to the right there's a sign that says the people should use their kiosks. How do we get that sign down so that people aren't confused with paying them instead of paying the city? I've mentioned it before.
Yeah, we share your concerns about that sign, along with a number of other questionable practices by the owner of Lot 9. I think the challenge is the sign, as far as we've been able to determine, is on private property. And to the extent that the sign references those who park at Lot 9, there may be some things we can do, but generally it's protected free speech, especially if it relates to those parking in Lot 9. So we'll continue to explore options, but there aren't necessarily a lot of great options we have if it's a sign put up on private property by the owner of that private property.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion on the motion before us? Councilwoman James.
I have one question, and that is the possibility of errors. Are there possibilities of errors with this system? And if so, would the resident have an opportunity to be able to explain that before they're billed directly through the courts?
There is an appeal process built into the application, yes.
There's a what?
Appeal process.
Oh,
So
okay,
if
great.
you get a ticket and you don't think it was legitimate, there is an appeal process built into the app.
Okay.
Basically, you would take a picture saying, I'm not illegally parked and the time hadn't expired, and submit that picture, and then it would come to me, and we would review it and go accordingly. So.
Okay, thank you.
Further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call and adoption of the resolution to execute a contract with Passport Inc. for a mobile parking application and parking violation enforcement. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to authorize the city clerk to publish the proposed budget amendment?
Yes, so moved.
Second.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilwoman James. The resolution authorizes the city clerk to publish the proposed budget amendment for the current budget year, increase the appropriation in the following GL account, 101-201-818.000, other professional services by $200,000. So again, this is the first step. We're going to authorize the clerk to publish a notice, and in 2 weeks' time, it will come before the city council for consideration. So, Mayor Grimo.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. I think you summed up the agenda item well. I would, with your permission, like to use this opportunity to correct some misinformation that was mention during public comment in reference to this agenda item, if I may.
Of course, yes.
The previous mayor continues to shamelessly spread misinformation about the status of the audit and about our efforts to clean up the mess that she left behind. She was in office for 8 years. She left office on or towards the end of December of 2021 or very early 2022. The audit in question covered the fiscal year from July 1st of 2021 through June 30th of 2022. In other words, at least half of that time period that was audited pertained to the previous mayor's term in office. We did a fiscal audit and solicited a contract to do a forensic audit, as I think the community is aware. That forensic audit found very serious problems and illegalities about the previous mayor's administration and about her conduct and spending in particular, including spending city funds on a purely personal trip. We came into office and inherited a mess left behind by the previous mayor. And the first half of that year that was audited, as I said, was the previous mayor's actual administration. When we entered office, we inherited all of the financial staff that had worked under the previous mayor. We inherited all of the practices and policies, or lack thereof, that occurred and were present under the previous administration. And so not only was the previous mayor actually in office for half of the time period covered by the audit that she mentions and criticizes, but we, during the transition, were still changing policies, or again, the lack thereof, putting policies in place that were a legacy of the bad financial practices of the previous mayor and her administration. And so it's not at all surprising to us that that audit found serious problems with city practices, because over half of the time period covered was under the previous administration, and we were still bringing on new staff, getting rid of staff that the previous mayor had on board that were not doing their jobs properly, and putting in place proper standards and procedures. So the previous mayor is truly shameless in trying to grandstand by criticizing this administration based on an audit that mostly covered her administration. I'll also note that I've been very clear and consistent in saying that the reasons we requested extensions from the state and the reason why the state gave us extensions is that there were VEBA funds, rather, not pension funds, but rather the retiree health VEBA funds that did not have their own audits completed on time. And that is essential supporting documentation for the city's audit. So we were waiting on the outside independent VEBA audits to be completed. And so yes, we were waiting on supporting documentation from outside VEBAs in the form of their audit. That's what we conveyed to the state, and that's why the state gave us extensions to file our audit with the state. The state gave us those extensions for good cause, because we were waiting on the completion of these outside audits of outside independent VEBAs. I'll also mention that we have been by far more transparent about these audit results than any previous administration. We not only posted it online, but we sent out a mass email to city residents explaining the budget process and providing a link to the audit that was completed. So far from the former mayor's misleading assertion that we've somehow been hiding things, we've been very open and very transparent about the audit, about the budget process, and about our continued efforts to clean up the horrible mess that she left behind.
Is there any further discussion about authorizing the clerk to post the budget amendment, which will be back in 2 weeks' time? Hearing no further discussion, roll call on adoption of the resolution to authorize the city clerk to publish the proposed budget amendment, increasing the appropriation in the GL account 101-201-818.000, other professional services by $200,000. Clerk Doyle.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
Okay, that'll be back before the city in 2 weeks for consider a budget amendment, and it can be reviewed further then. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to express formal support for the City of Pontiac Adopt a Park program?
So moved.
Support?
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman for the resolution regarding the city's Adopt a Park program. We give the floor to the mayor and administration for context.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. This agenda item relates to a policy that we've drafted that is designed to put some formality and structure around how volunteers, organizations, nonprofits, businesses, churches volunteer and provide support for our parks. We want to encourage that volunteerism, we welcome that volunteerism, and we want to encourage it in part by recognizing the efforts of people who are supporting our parks. So we've put together a policy that allows for formal recognition of parks that community groups wish to adopt by conducting several cleanups during the course of the year in the parks. We've also allowed for financial contributions in support of parks, including not just cash contributions for improvements in parks, but also in-kind contributions to improve the quality of our parks. And we've also provided for the possibility of entering into intergovernmental agreements to help support and maintain and improve our parks as well. So this is our effort really to encourage more volunteerism, more assistance to our parks, in large part by providing proper recognition for those who do so much for our parks and have long done so. And I want to give a special thank you to the Friends of the Pontiac Parks for their amazing volunteerism, not just for one particular park, as this policy contemplates, which is really about efforts and support for individual parks, but the Friends of the Pontiac Parks in particular has been so engaged and so helpful and so supportive of all of our parks in the city that I'm just very, very grateful for everything that they've done over the years, including our very own City Councilwoman, Kathy Lee James. And with that, I want to welcome our Parks Manager, Alex Zegarzuski, to the podium to talk about some of the specifics in the policy.
Good evening, Council. Pretty much, I mean, the mayor explained it perfectly. You know, this is just to encourage and try to incorporate the community within our park system. One of the greatest benefits a park system can have is just community involvement. So we wanted to design this program to give proper recognition for the groups that want to play a part in our beautification process and really make an effort in the community. So welcome, like I said, just if family members, groups, community of programs and businesses want to get involved, we welcome all help, and we will make sure we give proper recognition to everybody, and just to get foot traffic in our parks, spread the word of what we're doing here, and also to create partnerships. Hopefully someone steps up and wants to get involved in Pontiac, and it's just a great opportunity to do so. So, yeah, very excited about it.
Thank you. We'll now have deliberations and inquiries. Councilwoman Rutherford, followed by Councilman Parker. Anyone else want to be on the speaker?
Yes, this is to the administration. There seems to be some confusion about some of the parks that are adopted, mainly the ones that are adopted by Trinity Baptist Church, and if we own the park or do they own the park? And so how can we make sure that there's some clarity in that? And I yield that to the administration.
Yeah, thank you for the question, Councilwoman. I'm going to defer to Parks Manager Alex Zegarzuski and/or Deputy Mayor Stevens, but my understanding is that we own that park, and it was named Trinity Missionary Baptist Church Park in recognition of some of the past actions that the church did to support that park and ensure that the city was able to own it and properly maintain it. But Manager Zagorczewski, do you have some additional insights?
I mean, again, that was perfect. Yeah, according to the parcel numbers and the records, yes, we do own the park. Other than that, I'm not positive on how much involvement like the Trinity Baptist Church has, if any, maintaining of the park. That is something we are still figuring out. But according to the property, we do have ownership of the park and control any programs or events or anything that might be going on there.
So my follow-up is, I'm referring to Montana Park, the mini park.
The Motor Montana Park?
That's the one I'm referring to.
Okay, yeah, we own that one as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
Councilman Parker?
Thank you, Brother President. I'm just curious as I look at your Adopt a Park resolution and communication that are you planning on having anyone who can donate that doesn't make 10,000 or more?
Yes, we will accept all in-kind donations from anybody. We're not going to be very selective. If a family wants to come and say they have a little bit they want to give to the parks, we will gladly accept. And any in-kind donations will run properly through our Grants and Philanthropy Department, and we'll coordinate through the Parks Department on locations of such items, for example, benches or dog stations, anything like that that could be beneficial to the parks.
And how will we be marketing this?
So we will advertise that the program's available via our website. Once everything's up and running, get it on our social media. And then when we do have volunteers or people that are involved in the program, we'll give them proper recognition at city council meetings and post them on our social media sites and stuff once they have reached the milestones that are in accordance with the proposal or with the Adopt a Park program.
Okay, and I'm assuming that you'll also be available to attend some of the CDC meetings?
I will be available for whatever you guys need me for. Absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Councilwoman James.
Yeah, this Adopt a Park program, I think, answers two of the things that have always been problematic about these kinds of programs. Number one is we haven't had it in writing. So now we have an Adopt a Park when Trinity Church, as Councilwoman Rutherford brought up about their names being on the park, how that started was they approached the city about adopting those parks and wanting to be able to do things in those parks. And because we didn't really have a formal agreement or a formal process, it just kind of, fluttered out and never really got off the ground. So what this does is gives us that formal process that we can walk, businesses and churches and various groups that want to be involved, that we can say, hey, we've got a process now. And the other thing is that I like about this this program is that it's a one-year commitment, and that's the second area that's been a problem. Because if you just say, okay, you adopt the park, generally everybody starts out gung-ho the first year, and then that second year, things just begin to, businesses change, groups change, leadership changes, and what happens is things just kind of filter out. So this plan is giving each of these Adopt a Park commitments a one-year time frame.
Yep.
So if you want to continue that the next year, then you have to reapply and say, hey, we love what we're doing. We want to continue that for the next year. So I think those are the two areas that really can cause problems with these kinds of programs, but both of them are covered in this proposal, and I think it's a very strong proposal. I particularly like the fact that it's a one-year commitment. It doesn't tie up a business or a community group, with forever. It's a one-year commitment, and I think it, hopefully, I think it has a great opportunity to work for us and for community organizations.
Agreed. It's a policy that's hopefully simple for an organization to follow, to get the recognition, and hopefully encourages them to keep coming back.
Yeah.
But like you said, we could have easily turnover every year with it just being a one-year commitment.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, the motion before us is adoption of the resolution to express formal support for the City of Pontiac Adopt a Park program. Roll call, Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman, sorry.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted. The City of Pontiac's Adopt a Park program is alive and kicking. All right, could I please have a motion to table the resolution to approve the permit for United Wholesale Mortgage?
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Parker and seconded by Councilman Rutherford that we table this resolution as we await additional documentation.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Which one are we talking about here?
Number 17, resolution to approve the permit for United Wholesale Mortgage.
Oh, okay.
Point of information. So do you have any update? How long are we taking for? A week, a month? How long are we doing?
I intentionally didn't put a time frame because I don't know if it'll be a week or it might be 2.
Okay, thank you.
All right, hearing nothing further, roll call and adoption of the motion to table item number 17, that resolution. Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is tabled. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution approving the mayor's appointment of Sue Sinclair to the Planning Commission vacancy?
So moved.
Is there a second? It's been moved by Councilman Goodman, seconded by Councilman Parker. That item is now before us. We give the floor to Mayor Grimal.
Thank you, Mr. President. We have sought, as I've mentioned before, to formalize the process for appointments to a number of commissions. So we conducted interviews of 5 applicants for this Planning Commission vacancy. We were impressed by Ms. Sinclair's perspective on development in the community, but we were also impressed by her history of being involved, of going to Planning Commission meetings, ZBA meetings. She is a architect by training in that she has a degree in architecture, but she also has been working as an engineer for most of her career. So we thought that she brought a lot of important qualifications to the table, and we're confident that she'll do a good job serving on the Planning Commission.
All right, and thank you for providing the resume and background information as requested. Discussion on the motion. Councilman Rutherford?
Thanks to the administration. Is this would this mean she would serve on both the planning and the zoning, or just on planning? Because it's both.
She does not currently serve on the Zoning Board of Appeals.
And isn't there still a vacancy on the zoning board of appeals at this time?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion? Hearing no further discussion, roll call. I just want to point out, not all boards and commission appointments require initial approval by the city council, but just because of the impact the planning commission has, it has a higher threshold where we must approve those initial appointments and reappointments. Many of the other boards and commissions, it'll come to city council just if somebody's reappointed. So I just want to flag that about why in particular planning commission. It's because that's what the law says. All right. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
All right, that motion carries. Resolution is adopted, and Ms. Sinclair is appointed. Mayor Grimal's appointment of Ms. Sinclair is approved. Thank you to her for her willingness to volunteer on those important matters. The timing was good because, per my understanding, there's some training that's coming, so she'll be able to be a part of when the whole group receives some training and professional development as well. All right, moving on. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to extend the Carlisle Wortman contract for 3 months? It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford. Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman. We give the floor to the mayor and administration for context.
Thank you, President McGinnis. This is a proposal to continue for another 3 months a contract with a planning consultant for planning services. This is a need that has arisen in part because of some challenges in the past. There was a big backlog of work in the planning division that had not been done in a timely way under previous administrations. But it's also a very positive thing because it's also a reflection on the fact that we have a lot more applications for permits coming in, and that's a sign of the increased interest in development and investment in the community, bringing more jobs and increasing our tax base, bringing more tax revenues to the city. So it's a positive thing in the sense that it's a reflection on the amount of work that needs to be done in large part because of increased interest in investing in the community. And with that, I'll allow Manager Mark Yandrick to get into additional details.
Thank you for that introduction. That's a wonderful explanation as to what's going on. This contract with Carlisle Wortman is actually for a year because that's their contract template. But our resolutions that have previously been adopted by council as well as tonight authorizes that the mayor needs to sign this 3-month extension. As of April 30th, the Carlisle Wortman has invoiced the city for $21,000 of the $35,000 that is budgeted. It has been extremely valuable on these planning site plan reviews that have come before Planning Commission and the ZBA. And the request for this extension is to close out some existing projects. So we do not anticipate giving them any more projects unless there is a real peak demand over the next 30 or 45 days. So with that, I'd be happy to take any questions you may have. Thank you.
Councilman Parker.
Thank you, Brother President. Just one quick question, Mr. Yandrick. How much will the extension add to our budget, if any?
It will not. And our goal is to get these items spent this year, in this fiscal year, ending June 30th, if possible. And this is staying within the existing budget.
Councilman James.
Could you give us an example of the existing projects that they're going to be closing out?
Absolutely. So they are currently working with us on a residential infill overlay district that we are going to be sharing with the subcommittee at next month's meeting and following up with City Council. They are finishing some site plan reviews, and there is one other project that I'm forgetting about that they're working on. But overall, the city staff has taken over almost all site plan reviews going forward. So.
Further discussion? And to your point, the mayor's point in terms of the increased volume of investment and development in the city, special meetings have had to be added for the Planning Commission because just there's the number of hearings and site plan approvals and informational updates. It's vast, and that's in part because of the increased is it fair to say that's because your department has the increased capacity in part through Carlisle Wortman's professionals?
Absolutely. This has been very helpful.
Okay.
Yep.
And they are a firm with a very strong reputation in the Metro Detroit region. And have you found their work to be satisfactory or even exemplary so far?
I have found it extremely helpful, and we have worked with them on the medical marijuana ordinance. We have worked with them heavily on the mixed-use district ordinance, and they're really able to provide a service while staff is working on management and working on our processes and training new staff. This has been extremely helpful to actually move the bar with some of their work in this process. And I've also provided feedback to them the council has given on several of their reviews, both from City Council and Planning Commission, as we form that relationship. So.
Side note, great haircut. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion before us? Councilwoman James.
Yeah, especially in consideration of the fact that, as the mayor said, that we are seeing more applications for permits, so we are seeing an increase in that side of the business, and that's probably going to continue. So are we going to need additional staff, or are we going to just continue to utilize support staff in this way? I mean, I guess I'm trying to figure out where is this going to come to an end, or at some point are we going to actually look at our, what we need to be able to manage the business of the city?
So I'd be happy to answer that question. Really, we're trying to get staff trained, uploaded, get efficiencies with our division that we're able to self-manage. Now, in the future, whether it's with Carlisle Wortman or someone else, if there is special projects, I think we still want the ability budgetarily to provide outside service, particularly from experts. But I think by and large, for small planning and for regular operations, we look to do that all in-house, and we're getting close to getting there. So, and I will probably be discussing the same thing at our budget meeting on Thursday night. So,
Mayor Grimal.
Well, I was just going to emphasize that same point, which is Planning Manager Yandrick has already brought on board 2 additional planning staff, and there's a third position that's open that he's been interviewing people for. So I think very soon he'll have 3 additional planning staff under him. And the whole point of that is to ensure that, generally speaking, there will not be a need for employing outside consultants. There may be some exceptions to that if it's a particularly complicated or large project and there's a need for some short-term supplementary services. But once the third position within Planning Manager Yandrick's division is filled, the expectation is that on a day-to-day regular basis, Planning Manager Yandrick and his staff will be able to handle the entire workload in general, with some potential exceptions from time to time, without utilizing outside consultants.
Further discussion on the motion before us?
I just have a comment that, planning probably should be utilizing, as we talk about the coming budget, some kind of a budget for contractual, because these things come up, where there is a need to bring people in. I would think that you have contractual services as part of your recommended budget.
okay. Thank you. We do. So
You do?
I'll be
Okay.
happy to share that on Thursday.
Okay.
Further discussion on the motion before us? With that, speakers list exhausted. Roll call on the adoption of the resolution to extend the Carlisle Wortman contract for 3 months. Clerk Doyle.
Parker? Yes.
Rutherford? Yes.
Goodman?
Yes.
James?
Yes.
McGinnis?
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
All right, that motion carries. The resolution is adopted. Is there a motion to adopt the resolution to schedule a public hearing on May 16th, 2023 for the annual millage rates for fiscal year 2023-2024?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Support.
Moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Goodman. That's now before us. Mayor Grimal, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, President McGinnis. I'd like to turn this over to our very savvy and hardworking leader in the Treasury Department, and that's our Treasurer, Portia Prater.
Good evening, Good evening, everybody, City Council, Mayor, and Deputy Mayor. This agenda item is just really to establish a public hearing for the 2023-2024 proposed millage in excess of the maximum levy without public hearing. We have not collected the full millage, the full 12 operating mills for the city since 1998 due to the Haley Amendment. And so I'm excited that this is the first time that we will be able to collect the full millage, and we are able to, get the revenue in for the city services for all of the city residents. So that is what this is for, and I will be back in the following week to get those millages actually approved after this goes before a public hearing.
All right, so the action before us is we're just scheduling, saying at next week's city council meeting, in addition to agenda address, in addition to public comment, there will also be a public hearing specifically about the millage rates. Clerk Doyle? It's that there's too many mics on.
Okay, there we go. I thought we were changing, to the treasurer, the date of the public hearing because of the notice requirement to the 23rd.
Yeah, the 15th. Did I give a specific date? I said next week.
So actually, the resolution needs to be amended in the now therefore be resolved. It should read, the City Council of the City of Pontiac authorizes
Oh, I'm sorry, yeah.
the scheduling of a public hearing on Tuesday, May 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m.
That's correct.
Okay, is there a motion to amend the
So moved.
resolution? Moved by Councilman Rutherford and seconded by Councilman Parker. All right, so that we're striking the current date in the resolution, replacing with May 23rd, 2023 at 6 p.m. Any further discussion on that specific amendment? Tweaking the date and time? Hearing nothing further, roll call on that amendment. Clerk Doyle?
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes?
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
Okay, so what we have before us, when I was about to say next week, what I really mean is 2 weeks from now, there's also, in addition to public comment and agenda address, a public hearing where any resident or attendee can come and speak on millage rates and what you'd like to see happen. There will also be a public hearing at the end of this month at our final meeting in the month of May about the budget proposal overall. That's in addition to any of the budget hearings which are open to the public and have a public comment portion, in addition to agenda address and public comment at these meetings. So it's an additional opportunity for public feedback to help impact and shape what will be levied as millages, and then also the budget overall later this month. Any further discussion on the motion before us? It schedules the public hearing for May 23rd. It'll be as part of the city council meeting, but early on in the agenda. Hearing nothing further, roll call on adoption of the resolution scheduling that public hearing. Clerk Doyle.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. The resolution is adopted, and the public hearing is hereby scheduled. We're now at public comment. Councilman Goodman, are there requests?
Yes, there are. The first request that we have is from Mr. Robert Bass.
You'll want to make the microphone live by hitting the button to the bottom right. Yep, you're good.
It's live.
Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Robert Bass. I'm the president of Assistant District Council in District 1. And I just came this evening to give out some thanks. But first, we always have to honor our council person, Ms. Melanie Rutherford, for the time that she donates to us when she's able to come to our meetings. But I'm here to really give thanks to our mayor and his staff for coming and giving us an update on a project that's been ongoing and continues to be ongoing, and that's 404 Highland. Miss Rachel in Community Development Department, she was there, and I hope the mayor will give me the name of the attorney because I want his name mentioned. As far as they gave a very important and informational update on that property and how we move forward with that property. I also want to thank all of the district organizations that showed up and showed out. They came in great style. There was about 5 different organizations, leaders that was there, and they gave what their thoughts were about this property. And I'm so glad that they showed out. So our meeting is a CDC meeting, Citizen District Council meeting. It encompasses all the organizations in District 1, both block clubs, associations, and other organizations that are grouped together. So I want to thank all of them for coming out. The meeting was very enlightening and very insightful, but I came mainly to apologize to our mayor because during that meeting, there was some discussion going on, and as he did his presentation, he had a mindset as to how things transpired up to this point and beyond. I had my mindset to another area, so we were both right in what we were talking about because of our mindset. He worked in administration. He sees things that we don't see and can't see. So in his mindset, that's what he was talking about. He didn't have the information. I had a small set of information that I had the mindset that you should know what I know. So, like I said, I made a mistake while we were talking, and I told him that what he said was not true. And I had no right to tell him that. I had no right to tell anybody that, because your mindset might be different than mine, and we may be talking but not listening to each other. And that's what happened that particular day. I was not listening closely enough to calculate that the mayor was talking about what he has to experience through the day-to-day. And I was speaking of the onset of this project from ever since 2020 to the present. So my time is up, Mr. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you so much for your time.
Who's next?
Next on the speakers list is Carlton Jones.
Good evening. I was at that meeting, and I commend Mr. Bass as being the leader of the CDC for stepping forward and say that, you know, he had a different understanding than the mayor, and the mayor had his perspective. And I appreciate when we get together as city and city organizations, if we can work things out, because this issue, being a resident of District 1, is very important to me also. And I just like to be able to say that if we work together, we can do great things. And I think a lot of times that's the whole issue. We don't want to be everywhere like we're opposed to city government. I am so glad to see that we can get on a different track. But I will say, you know, I've been coming up here for a while, and people have been telling me, say, Carlton, you know, you saying some things, we wondering why it seems like some folks are not listening. But I'm not going to say that. That's what they tell me. But I will say this. I was at a meeting on Monday, and this meeting was the economic outlook for Oakland County. And they pointed to everything that we have been trying to say that we need to do with TDC. That's to develop talent, not just get a job right now and be that starter job, to develop talent here in Pontiac that we could be ahead of the curve. We cannot wait on this. They talked about Pontiac a lot at this Economic Summit. It wasn't always in the best light because we don't show up the same way that the executive have put a challenge to Oakland County to get Oakland County at 80% by 2030. 80% of the residents having a post-secondary degree or a trained certificate. This is all about economics. This is all about community, and it's all about workforce preparedness. We have to come to grips that we are not quite prepared, but we can't wait on it. We need to do it now. And it does not need to be something that the city started from day one doing. We got viable entities already in place that could step in and help the city ahead of the curve. And I'm just saying this is because it's so important to our position for the county, for us, period. So I'm just hoping that we will start being more aggressive towards, and if anybody didn't get a chance to come out, and I know everybody wasn't able to make it out to that economic outlook, I have a copy of it. It's probably posted. I would say take a look at it, because you need to understand right now, Oakland County cannot achieve that without Pontiac making a big turn. It can't happen. Thank you.
Next on the speakers list would be Dr. Deidre Waterman.
It's great to hear about the fine work that's going to be done in our public parks. Was it 28, 29, 30 public parks we have right now are one of the jewels of the city that the emergency manager did not sell off. So that's why it's such a value to the city of Pontiac. So as I heard the discussion, you talking about it, and there was some question about the ownership, and I think that was confirmed. Be very assured that all the public parks are owned by the city of Pontiac, and that they cannot be dispersed without a referendum of the vote of the people. So that is in your charter. So in terms of some parks being named for certain groups that helped, such as Rotary Park was named for the Rotary Club, which helped in its founding. Under my administration, we had such things as the neighborhood empowerment projects, and there were some groups that did adopt parks or do work in parks, and because of that became affiliated with the park. But that affiliation didn't mean that they were performing a public service, but didn't mean that they owned the park. The city of Pontiac owns the parks, and that's going to be extremely important for one of our most valuable parks, and that's Crystal Lake Park, which is on the largest undeveloped lake in all of Oakland County. So we want to see, we'll be following along. But, and by the way, the agenda address item I was speaking to was number 15, and that's one of the corrective actions that was required by the audit and in order to prove some of the deficiencies in that department. Now, I wasn't going to harbor on this, but since the mayor is so defensively throwing out these egregious statements, including, as he does, past slurs against Vern Gustafson and Donovan Smith, who are our past planners, who did a good job for the city. So I don't know why the point is in putting slurs on them in order to move his administration around, as he did when he was talking about the Carlisle workmen. So, but that just happens. But the only reason I brought up the audit was because as some of us were saying that this is unusually late to come in, we were ridiculed by the mayor. And so it was just important that people realize, and I'm glad this finally got posted, but one of the things that is unusual for this audit, and can't blame everything on our administration, is that there is unusually a management letter, a two-page management letter, in which the auditors say that these are the deficiencies of this administration, this department, and so deficient that they made the mayor and the deputy mayor sign off on a two-page item of corrections. And Kilfani, he made you sign off on this. Generally, the mayor only signs off on the audit, but that's on your reputation now, even though you were struggling hard to do the job of the finance director, even though you don't have a CPA and you have all the other things to do as deputy mayor.
That concludes your time.
So I just brought that up.
And his name is Deputy Mayor
And his signature is on
Kalfani
this audit.
Stevens.
So the next respectful person on the list would be Pastor Kathy Desera.
Adopt a Park is just such a super plan. As a lifelong member of the Optimist Club International and also a Lions Club member, those are things that those clubs take on. And like Adopt a Mile, highway adoption. And they put little signs up, and every time you drive by, you say, oh gosh, this is an active club. But they also go out and take care of it. They keep it clean, they rake it, they plant flowers, they do. And it seems to me like we could adopt some of those kinds of things to do with Adopt a Park. Unfortunately, District 5 won't have any more parks of their own because we only had one to start with, and that's going to be Oakland County. So what happens to who takes care of that? That's the only park we have in our district. On a much sadder note, I wanted to express my condolences to Pastor Laura Kelsey and the unexpected death of her father, who was also a pastor up in the Flint area, and Pastor Teresa Lee, whose husband passed this last week as well. And so when you are remembering people, just because they're pastors, they hurt just like we do. Their faith carries them, but their hearts are still broken. And so I'd ask that you remember those two families this week.
And then last on the list for public comment would be Miss Gloria Miller.
Okay, I want to start out I got questions, so it's going to be for the council. For several. First, Ms. Rutherford, I'm going to start with your district because I realize a lot of this is in your district. These are some of the questions resident, and they want it on record. Is the meal dam is going to be closed at 8 p.m.? It hasn't started being closed already at 8 p.m., or will it? Would you address that? Also in your district, the golf course. Has it been sold? Mayor can answer, anybody on the council. Have the golf course been sold? Is it in the process of being sold? And when and who's buying it? Okay, the speed hump, Ms. James, I asked you to address that on the speed hump, why the RFP was done so late, because we talking about May, this is middle May, June, that's when you get all the kids running across these streets, and that's why I fought hard for those, for speed bump, because we got some streets that's gonna be out of whack here. Lastly, not last, but I want to address, I want to get to this first. Code enforcement, I wanted that one last. You know, I listened about code enforcement, and Bash, you know, we go way back, way back. I love you, got nothing but respect for you. But there's one thing about me that I learned about mayors in the seat. They're here for a while, but we've been here over 28-some years. You've probably been here longer. And I don't work for them. I work for the people. I work for the people. And when I know what I know, yes, the mayor does run administration. The mayors run administration. But I think we more, at least I know we are, more in tune with the resident because we stay on the ground and talk to them. We don't know the semantics of what they're doing, but I try not to put politics in what I do. And I thank God I'm on this side because, see, I can do more because I don't like politics. I don't play with people's lives. I have people that I grew up with, families that I know, that I respect and respect me. Any of them know me that really know me, know that I got their back. They know that. I never betrayed them, never sell them out. And by the way, Mr. McGinnis, I don't know if I ever told you, I grew up in your district. I grew up over there. Yes, it looked bad. It's trash all up down, going down South Boulevard. It's not your fault, but, you know, those are the things I'm talking about when I say neighborhood. I don't see anything done for the neighborhood. Councilman Parker, I tried when I was in office to try to get on Featherstone. What's the name of it? What is it? Amazon, I couldn't remember. Amazon to pay Bay Street. Try to get a talk with them and pay Bay Street. Because they haven't done anything in my district, to my knowledge. Now, maybe since you've been in office, maybe so, but I know they got enough packages for my family alone to help them. Okay, and then last but, you know, the least, the code enforcement, we got some work to do on them. Because watch what you say and how you say it, because I got camera, people got cameras, and they can record you. And some of the things I'm hearing from code enforcement is a lot of illegal stuff.
And that concludes public comment.
Okay. Was there anyone who didn't sign up but still wanted to speak during public comment? Okay. With that, is there a motion to adopt the resolution to move into closed session?
So moved.
All right, it's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford and seconded by Councilman Parker. It's a resolution to proceed in closed session to consider and discuss confidential legal opinions in connection with trial or settlement strategies and the purchase of real property. It is pursuant to MCL 15.248 subsection G and to section 8H of the Open Meetings Act, MCL 15.268 subsection H. So we intentionally staged this so that way public comment wasn't thwarted or slowed down or any of the business items of the agenda. We got through those 20 items together. Thank you all for the community that had weighed in and the council that had dispensed with those decisions as a city. A little side note, we had Youth in Government here last week and the Youth in Government banquet this afternoon, and it really underscored hopefully something that everyone who's here knows, is that we the people determine what happens in our city. We are choosing how we govern ourselves, and so we've been able to come together on a lot of different items week after week, and as a city, on your behalf, we're making a lot of decisions. So it was a fun experience to have the students reenact some of the very policies we've been discussing. They did a great job. With that little sidebar over, I will give the floor to Clerk Doyle to do roll call on adoption of the resolution and proceed in closed session.
Goodman,
Yes.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are in closed session at 7:51 p.m. We will be coming back out and voting to determine, to demonstrate and show on the record when that closed session is concluded. See you on the other side. Thank you.
I thought it was 12:30, but 12 o'clock is fine. But I did invite Darrell, our council liaison, to come with, if that's okay. And I'm gonna talk about that Economic Summit because oh,
Have a motion to come out of closed session.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilman Parker, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we motion to come out of closed session. We're actively in a city council meeting. Roll call on that motion, Clerk Doyle.
James,
Yes.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yes.
Goodman.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion passes. We are out of closed session at 8:45 p.m. Next on the agenda are council communications. Most importantly, we have our next special meeting on the budget, Thursday, May 11th, 5 p.m., right here in the council chambers. And other announcements and communications are listed on the printed version of the agendas, also accessible online. Mayor's Office, communications.
Thank you, President McGinnis. A few quick items. One is that we do have a special Planning Commission meeting tomorrow, May 10th, Wednesday, right here in City Council Chambers at 6 p.m. In addition, we still anticipate that the southbound lanes on Woodward between Rapid and South Boulevard should reopen by the end of May or the first week of June at the very latest. And lastly, I want to again reiterate and remind people that we do have the groundbreaking ceremony for this really exciting skate park project. It's going to be a state-of-the-art skate park in Oakland Park, and that groundbreaking ceremony is this Friday, May 12th, from 3:30 p.m. to 5 p.m., again, at Oakland Park, so we hope to see folks out there.
All right. Mayor Gremlin, your closing comments.
Yeah, thank you, President McGinnis. Just wanted to address some of the questions and concerns that were expressed by the public this evening. Number one, the speed hump RFP went out sometime in April, and we have received responses, and that time period to provide responses and proposals has closed. So we are going to be bringing forward a proposed contract with a provider of speed humps next Tuesday at next Tuesday's City Council meeting. So we are well on our way to actually getting those speed humps deployed in neighborhoods. Also, I wanted to just say I appreciated Robert Bass's comments this evening, but Mr. Bass certainly did not have anything to apologize for. I thought the community meeting was a great meeting. It was informative to me and to our community development director as well as the city attorney, and I thought it was a great exchange of information. So I want to thank Mr. Bass for his leadership and for convening the meeting and having a really open and honest conversation about 404 Highland. This is, like so many other issues, something that was botched by the previous administration that we've been working to clean up and address. A house was allowed to be built that did not comply with zoning ordinance and other city codes. And calling it a house might be a little bit of a euphemism because it's more of a garage masquerading as a house. And so we're left trying to determine the best course of legal action after mistakes made by the previous administration. So, and they did not really fully allow it to be built because they did not follow proper city protocols or proper legal channels when the previous administration issued a building permit. So it's one of many situations where we're trying to address and remedy and clean up mistakes by the previous administration. I also just wanted to respond. There was a concern expressed about Galloway Lake Park in District 5 being managed in partnership with Oakland County. That is not the case, and there are no discussions about managing Galloway Lake Park in partnership with the county. So I'm not sure what prompted that concern or question. There have been conversations about a partnership agreement with Oakland County for Hawthorne Park, but not with Galloway Lake Park. And then finally, I wanted to answer the questions to the best of our ability about the golf course. Number one, I want to just emphasize that the golf course, although it was owned by the city for many years as the Pontiac Municipal Golf Course, it has not been owned by the city of Pontiac in at least 10 years because emergency managers sold that golf course, and so it's been privately owned for at least 10 years now. And what my understanding is, based on some information I received today, is that a purchaser has entered into a purchase agreement with the current private owner of the golf course to buy it, but we don't know who that buyer is. So we understand it's been entered into a purchase agreement for sale to a potential buyer, but we don't know who that buyer is, and that buyer has not yet closed on that property and therefore has not yet taken ownership of that property. So that is everything I know about the golf course, the links at Crystal Lake. Thank you, Mr. President.
Deputy Mayor Stevens, anything?
Certainly. Thank you, Council President. As you know, I very rarely speak at this point in time. I just want to make sure that the record is clear concerning the audit. Yes, I absolutely did sign that management letter because I am part of management, and that is what management does. If you have any inclination, I encourage you to read the audit, and you will see for yourself what the findings were. And I'm very proud of the fact of the work that we have done to bring the city from a very poor standing to working towards a much better standing. And that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Clerk Doyle?
No comments.
Mr. President.
Councilman Parker?
Thank you, Brother President. I've been kind of quiet for the last 2 weeks, but I do want to make sure that I issue out some thank you. First, I want to thank, since I didn't get to do it when we did it, I want to thank Oakland Ford for coming out and helping us clean up Galloway Park during our week of cleaning. I want to certainly reinforce what Mr. Carlton Jones had to say about the Oakland County Economic Outlook presentation yesterday. It was a very good presentation. I also have a copy on my desk if anybody chooses to look at it. But one of the things that they talked about economic development, and they addressed the processes in the 80 and 30 processes. One of the things that we certainly need to pay attention to is if we're going to get people to either certified or either a bachelor's degree or higher, we're going to have to do something about adult literacy. And we're going to also do something in regards to addressing the mental health issue that keeps people from being able to pursue further educational things in this city. As we were talking about, and I know as we talked about the road humps, one of the things I want to remind everybody is, because it's been stated previously at our meetings, our District 5 meetings, that there will not be allowable any road humps to go on Bay Street, but we are trying to get some additional signage there to prevent people from speeding up and down that street. And also, as we were talking about the potholes that all exist on Bay Street, I know one of the things that has been driving the process of probably getting that road repaved and all of that has to do with the project that's happening in Galloway Lake Park that the WRC director has shared with us that until they finish that process, it'll be difficult for them to decide, because some of that's supposed to come up Bay Street, that it would be difficult to decide or have the city decide how they were going to cover that street. So I want to make sure I mention that. Wanted to make sure that I mentioned that because of the budget meetings that we're having, District 5 will not be meeting on May 11th at 6 p.m. downstairs. Please make sure that you share that with those who do come. District 5 will not be holding their DCDC meeting this Thursday at 6 p.m. due to the budget meetings that we're having. Again, our prayers go out to Bishop Teresa Lee and the New Birth International family. Our prayers go out to Pastor Laura Kelsey and the First Presbyterian family on their losses. We know that God has them in the palm of his hand, and he's guiding them and directing them as it goes. I also want to thank Mr. Dumsky for taking time out of his schedule to meet with the Fieldstone Association group as they're dealing with some of their construction issues that are taking place in there. I want to thank each and every member of this council for continuing to strive to make Pontiac a better city, to make the difficult decisions that are necessary to make Pontiac a better city, and putting up with the obvious mess, I put it as mess, that happens because we made some of the difficult decisions. So with that, I say have a great evening, Pontiac.
Councilwoman James.
Yes. First of all, I'd like to clarify the Parks, Recreation, and Public Works report that I gave. I said that my next meeting was in June, and we actually do have a meeting on May the 22nd. Our May meeting is May the 22nd, which happens to be my birthday, but I am going to persevere and have my Parks, Recreation, and Public Works Subcommittee meeting on my birthday.
Period.
So that meeting is at 12 noon in the Legislative Conference Room, and it is open to the public. Thank you, Mayor, for giving the clarification as far as the speed humps. That was in my report, and I didn't mention that May 4th was the deadline for the RFPs and that those are now in. I would add, though, that the real time-consuming part of the speed humps was in identifying where they would go, and that was done early on with the council members' participation. So we have, for months and months, known exactly where those speed humps would go. And keep in mind that these are removable humps. These are speed humps that are fairly easy to install. So once we get the contractor on board and everything, I am sure that they will be able to be installed in a very timely manner. Also want to mention the skate park project that we're going to be doing the groundbreaking. Just want to say, you know, again, that this really was rarely do community projects or projects like this start out as a grassroots effort. But this was one of the things that actually started as a grassroots effort with the individual that Miss Mary Jane Rennie, and she was able to connect with a group of young people in the city who love skateboarding. They call themselves the Skate Park Project. Mm-hmm. And I just can't say enough about that group, because not only have they driven this whole project and initiative, but they've just been outstanding in terms of monitoring the current skate park and creating programs for the current skate park. We've had the current skate park being used now more than it's ever been used because of their involvement. So I just think it's outstanding to see that kind of engagement in a city, and I am very excited to see the groundbreaking for our new state-of-the-art skate park. Thank you.
Councilman Goodman.
I have no closing comments for tonight.
Councilman Rutherford.
Well, I sure do. A wounded dog will always holler. That's something my grandma would tell me. You can always tell when people are in the wrong when they try to deflect and say things. So I want to just clear up a couple of things. I feel like I'm in the mood to do so, if you let me, sir. Number one, the park does shut down at 8 p.m. It's been shut down by 8 p.m. The sign is there. It's nothing new. Number two, I have no idea who's buying the golf course. We don't own the golf course. And even though the mayor said it, I want to reiterate, how am I supposed to know that? It's private property. I don't know any of that. So don't ask me that if I don't know. Number three, Deputy Kafani Stevens, I have known you since I was 15 years old, and don't you ever let nobody question you for who you are and whose you are, because you Southside first. And people forget that. And that means something to somebody like me. Number four, you know, I just want to say, if ever there was a need for affordable housing, there is now. Today, at my regular job, there was a mother. She had 6 children. They were sleeping in her car. I called every shelter, from here to Macomb to Washtenaw. I called Hara. I begged pastors, who I won't put on blast today, but it's coming. And I said, can you help her? Now, this wasn't a woman that's just having children. This was a woman that decided, because she was getting beat every day since COVID, that she had had enough and that she would rather have her children sleeping in a car, a sedan, than go back to that terrible situation. It took me to have to call one of my homegirls from West Bloomfield. Shouts out to Ashley. I said, I need you to get this person in the room, because won't nobody else help me do it, and it's got to get done. At the end of the day, these are our people. She's trying to get better. She did the right thing. She married because, there's always a scenario where people are like, well, why they have all those kids? She was married. And all she want to do is do what's best for her kids. And it is appalling to me that we have absolutely no room in any of the shelters that are here in Pontiac. And you can't go to some of them because if you have children at the Hope Center, you can't go there. And if you don't do religious practices, you can't go to other ones. And then the Haven is already booked. And and the PAD program has got 5 families flat, so she on the waiting list. We have got to start having real discussions about people bringing affordable housing here for people like her. It broke my heart today to watch that happen because she didn't come to me because she wanted to. She came because she had no other choice. And I'm sure other council people deal with that every day, but I just happen to deal with it more because it's in my job. It's in my wheelhouse, and I once was homeless before. So I'm going to say this again. We have got to do something about affordable housing in this city. I don't know if people don't understand it. I don't know if y'all get it because we got people that's staying in life or death situations that's trying to do better. Last but certainly not least, there will be a District 1 meeting. It's going to be at the end of the month. I'm just waiting to make sure I get the confirmation. Day will be the last Saturday of the month. Hope that the mayor, as he always shows up, can come eat some fried chicken because I'm going to have some there especially for him. And making sure that everybody understands, listen, there's a song by Earth, Wind, and Fire that says, keep your head to the sky. And I want every mother out there that's struggling to do what they got to do to take care of their children to understand that if don't nobody else have your back, I can say this council does. And to that I say, good night.
All right, good evening. I'm Mike McGinnis, representing Pontiac's District 7, the Garden District of Pontiac. And it is in full bloom with this beautiful weather, and I'm so grateful that the weather is wonderful forecast. Been spending a lot of time with neighbors and just rolling up my sleeves, clearing up storm sewer drains, clearing up debris, making sure that things that have been dumped are being addressed. And so please, if you live on Pontiac's east side, and you see something that you know can be cleaned up, that the city can make improvements with, give me a shout. So many of the residents and neighbors do, and I'm grateful for that because it gets results. So let's keep getting results. We have a lot of ground to make up for. We are dealing with neighborhoods that have deteriorated over generations, housing stock that is 100+ years old, many of the homes, and there is some deterioration in age that comes with the charm and the maturity that Pontiac's East Side has. But I'm really excited that many residents are eager to find out about the home repair program. So that way, as soon as those applications are eligible, homeowners on Pontiac's East Side can be in the mix. And in the meantime, we'll make sure that all the city services, from public works to code enforcement to planning and economic development, are delivering results to enhance our east side. And as city council person, I'm here to help be that ombuds person for you, meaning to help advocate for you, connect the dots to make sure those improvements can happen, so that way people don't keep talking about our side of town negative or sideways. I look forward to continuing to make those improvements with you for the blooming of our garden district, the gardens of Pontiac on our east side. Thank you to everyone who came out. We had a really packed house at our community meeting for the month of May. The next one is June 12th. We've received notice that DTE Energy is making upgrades to the grid system, and that'll be impacting Pontiac's east side. There have been a lot of crews working along Pike Street. There's a notice that Pike will be closed, very close to my house, unfortunately, but Pike will be closed between Union and the Woodward Loop. So right there in front of the sheriff's substation and the old central school. I don't know if it'll be constantly or intermittently, but that's until July 7th. So that can be a challenge. I want to make sure that residents of our neighborhoods know that, so that way their commutes don't have to be impacted, or other time-sensitive parts of their busy day. I want to make sure that is known. And with that, for the sake of time, I don't have any more time. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Support.
It's been moved by Councilwoman Rutherford, seconded by Councilman Goodman, that we adjourn this evening's meeting. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, Clerk Doyle.
McGinnis,
Yes.
Parker,
Yes.
Rutherford,
Yeah.
Goodman,
Yes.
James.
Yes.
5 yeas, no nays.
That motion carries. We are adjourned.